Hi guys, Dan here, and today we're going to be talking about K-PAX by Brewer, which is the first book in a series of 5 K-PAX novels. In terms of genre, I'm really not too sure. It depends what you take away from the book, really. I think it's either a science fiction or it's a psychological drama. Maybe I'll come back onto that a bit later. So yeah, in this book we follow Dr. Gene Brewer, who is a hard-working psychiatrist at the Manhattan Institute, I think. He doesn't have much time for his wife or his kids or even his patients because he's so sort of career focused and he's having to do with loads of admin. He's applying for directorships at the institute, blah blah blah. But this all begins to change when he meets a new patient who calls himself Prote. And Prote claims to be from the planet K-PAX, which is like this utopian world where there's no religion, no violence, no discrimination, no government. And so Prote says that he used this world's advanced technology to travel to Earth on a beam of light. And Dr. Brewer obviously very surprised by this, and him and this reporter Giselle, who is writing an article on mental health, start to do some research into Prote's background. Dr. Brewer is also interviewing him, doing psychiatry type sessions with him, and they discover that Prote may in fact be this guy called Robert Porter, who suffered a traumatic episode 5 years ago that led to him developing this secondary personality as a coping mechanism. But this doesn't explain some weird results they get back on some tests that they do on Prote, and also he has this like really extraordinary knowledge of astronomy that it would be a real struggle for them to explain it under any normal circumstances. Meanwhile, in the institute, Prote is having like a really positive impact on a load of the other patients, because he says that he is going to be able to take one person back with him to this utopian planet K-PAX. So they're all sort of competing to be the ones that are able to go with him. So is this any good? Yeah, actually, it's not necessarily the kind of book that I would normally read, but I said to one of my friends I wanted to read some science fiction, and she gave me this. And like I say, I'm not 100% sure it really is science fiction, but it's not the kind of book I'd normally read, and I did enjoy it. It's quite sort of endearing and humorous, and it sort of encourages you and leaves you the space to ask a load of questions, and doesn't necessarily feel like it's got to answer all of them for you either. It just gives you a bit of space to sort of, ponder them. So that was a nice change of pace from a lot of things that I normally read. So, like I say, the book's written from the point of view of Dr. Brewer, and it's supposedly an expansion on his notes from the sort of psychiatry sessions that he does with Prote. But this is not like absolutely strictly the case, because there's a load of tangents about his family life and about the other patients and about this reporter Giselle thrown in there, and stuff about his past as well. But what it does mean is that the writing style is kept really simple. It doesn't have loads of flowery prose, and in my view this really helps with the main strength of the book, which is how good it is thematically. The simple writing style and the sort of short length, it's only a couple of 100 pages long, make it a really quick read, but it manages to cram in like loads of questions on all sorts of topics into that space. So like the nature of Prote and Dr. Brewer's relationship raises loads of questions about the theme of like identity and I guess this sort of inherent paradox in trying to define it, if that makes any sense. Prote's relationships with the other patients, he's this kind of almost messianic figure to them. Raises questions about like how perceptions influence reality, and also about the positive and negative sides of believing very strongly in something. And there's that like classic conundrum of like, if Prote is really sick but he's or mentally unwell, then is he better off being cured because he's pretty happy how he is? I mean, that's just like scratching the surface. I imagine I'm going to be thinking about, the issues that this book raised for quite a while. Brewer as an author deals with all of these questions, like I said, in a really sort of endearing way, lots of humour. And there's like this sense of like hope and a willingness to look on the positive side of things. It's a warm and fuzzy book, similar to the writing style. The character arcs are pretty simple, and they all either have a nice resolution or they can be interpreted as having had a nice resolution, if you're willing to look on the positive side. And in fact, I think the overall resolution, the ending of the book, worked really well. It's sort of left really ambiguous, and this is one of the reasons why I was having a problem placing the genre of the book right. One of the big questions is Prote really from another planet? Because if Prote is really from another planet, then in this novel there's like a bona fide alien and space travel, so that means it's definitely a science fiction novel, right? But if Prote is not from another planet and he's suffering from this secondary split personality disorder, then that means that this is a psychological drama. There's no aliens in it, there's no space travel or whatever. It's just a psychological drama. But in the spirit of the book, I think I'm going to look on the positive side and say I believe that Prote was an alien, so this is a science fiction book, I'm going to say. So yeah, K-PAX, Gene Brewer. It's a really enjoyable book. What I will say though is I don't think I'm going to pick up the second book in the series, because one of the things I really liked about this book was how ambiguous the ending was left. I won't tell you what the ending is, but it was left very ambiguous, and I don't really actually want to see which side of it was right. I'd rather, it feels like it's right to be left with the question. So if I read the second book, I think it would ruin the ending for me. So I'm afraid that Gene Brewer, in spite of the fact he's written a really good book here in K-PAX, has actually written me out of reading the second one in the series. But anyway, yeah, I do recommend reading K-PAX though. So yeah, that was a good one. Bye.